It's fully threaded radio. Unthreaded.
Hi, everyone. Eric Dudas with you with an Unthreaded edition of the podcast. This time, it's a conversation with Laurence Claus. We recorded this a couple of weeks after the International Fastener Expo when he was inducted into the Fastener Hall of Fame. He was still riding the experience of that event when I talked to him about his career, his mentorship of so many people in the industry over the years, and his ideas about what lays ahead for the fastener industry. This was a conversation I was really looking forward to, especially after I had a chance to get to know Laurence a little bit, interacting with him during Fastener Week. He's been a long-time trainer, as you'll hear during this discussion. And before we jump in, I'll take a moment to acknowledge our partners. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Cressa, Endries International, InSequel Software, Jaylan Franco, MW Components, Fastener Technology International, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. When you get the chance, if you do, let them know you appreciate their support of the podcast. As I said, we recorded after the IFE, and I'm publishing this about the third week of October 2025. Here's my discussion with fastener engineer and trainer extraordinaire, Laurence Claus. Hi, Laurence. It's great to see you, and it seems like just the other day we were in Vegas.
Yeah, good to see you, Eric. And it was, just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
So you're still riding that high.
A little bit. Unfortunately, you come back to real life after that. And
yeah, life goes on, and you got to keep proving yourself, which is no problem for you. Well, I had a great time in Vegas, and one of the highlights for me was certainly the Hall of Fame experience and listening to your acceptance comments. Let's back up a little more. I had a chance to sit in on one of your classes. It was back in May of last year, 2024. And it was the Certified Fastener Specialist Training Week. It happened at Brighton Best here in Cleveland. And you were one of the instructors, of course, you and Salim Brahimi. And I really enjoyed that class.
Yeah, I train in a lot of different venues, through several different organizations. Certainly one of my favorite classes to do is Fastener Training Week. That class has a couple really unique pieces to it. One, it's a week long, so we get to really know the participants relatively well by the end of the week. And we start out the week. I pretty much start out any training this way, going around the room and having people introduce themselves. And I always ask, "What are you hoping to get out of this?" And the normal response is, "I want to learn something new." And, we tell them that we as the instructors, and I know this is definitely true for me, but I think it's true for Carmen and for Salim as well, that we learn stuff as well. And Fastener Training Week, because we have a long time with all the participants, really does allow that to happen. So that's a real, Fastener Training Week is really a fun event for me. And I get to do it generally 3, maybe even 4 times a year. So it's, always a real pleasure.
Well, when Carmen was introducing you there in Vegas, he pointed out that out of any trainer in the fastener industry, you probably have twice as many pupils out there in the industry. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I heard Carmen when he said that. I'm not sure that's actually true or not. Carmen certainly has been teaching for a long, long time. So, but I think I've been training now. I've been training for many years, even prior to, my past life. One of the things I did in my role was I would go to customers and do training sessions. But again, in my current journey, training, I probably do more training than anything else. And so over the last, 12 years or so, I don't know how many training events I've had, but certainly probably several thousand participants.
Well, I have to tell you one thing that I really enjoyed about the way that you started Fastener Week. And it was you spent about 15, 20 minutes at the very beginning with a section. I remember the slide. It was the fastener industry, a great industry to be in. And you gave a little bit of history about how did we as an industry get here. And you took that time to really ramp up the excitement and to explain, especially to the newer people in the class, people who might have been newer to the industry, and they found themselves being sent to this class just to get their feet wet, I guess, and give them a reason to really get excited about fasteners. And I came away very excited myself. It was a great way to start out. And I could tell it was the mark of a skillful educator.
Well, we have a great industry, and yet I think that it's very sadly marginalized in the general population. We don't think about screws and bolts, and I think for individuals that are new to the industry or young in the industry, which is a good majority of the participants we have with Fastener Training Week, I think laying that foundation at the very beginning of the class is a good one. You're here in this class to learn something new, but we have you're in a great place. This is a great industry. There's so much to offer it, and again, learning is part of that. But never be I guess always be proud of the fact that you are in this industry that although the product may not, may elicit yawns by most people, it is absolutely critical to society, right? I mean, if our product didn't work, things would be falling apart and things would just be chaos. So, yeah, so I like to sort of put that perspective as we start to train about all these things to know. And it's really remarkable when you think about it, how much there is to know about fasteners. We spend the better part of, again, Fastener Training Week, we spend the better part of 3 days strictly on sort of classroom training pieces. The rest of that class involves a lot of hands-on and some practical type of, education. But, we have at least 3 days that are full sort of classroom training. And we just barely scratch the surface of the knowledge that's out there.
Oh, are you kidding? I mean, I'd be the first to admit that. I'm glad the test was open book. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it is a wonderful industry, and it's been very good to me personally. And again, I think we enjoy. I enjoy as an instructor having people new to the industry and being able to share some of that knowledge that will help new people to the industry become more successful. It's a good place. It's a lot of fun.
Now, you've interacted with so many students. If you had to take a guess, sizing up the students who have passed through, how many would you say, or what percentage would you say are going to be the ones who go on to become these like walking encyclopedias of standards knowledge and everything like you and Salim are?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I even want to guess on that. I think if you're putting them in the context of somebody who's really going to become a very, a super deep technical expert and deeply involved in standards, it's standards work. It's a relatively small percentage of the individuals that we participate with, but that's perfectly okay. Right? Not everybody is going to become a standards expert or or ultimately replace being the same sort of role that me or Salim or Carmen are in. But I think that every student that we've had, again, walks away so much more knowledgeable about the industry. And I think I've encountered multiple students now, number of years after taking the class, and the feedback is always the same. I learned so much, and it has been so helpful to me, in my role here since taking the class. It really helped me springboard to become much better in what I'm doing. And so, the better question to ask is maybe not what percentage are going to become this type of expert, or this type of expert. It's what percentage of the students that we have are going to use that experience to become much better in the roles and in the future opportunities that they have in this industry. And that's going to be a very high percentage. Surely there's some number of students that are participants that we have in our training that find some other opportunity outside of the fastener industry. So, that number is not going to be 100%, but an awful lot of people are going to stay in this fastener industry for their career. And I think that, again, for those, a very, very high percentage are going to use this and other training that they'll receive as a springboard to continue to help them grow in their professions.
Yeah, well, that's probably a better way of looking at it. Refresh my memory. What's the Fastener Training Institute policy on repeating Fastener Week? Because it seems to me like you could go into that class, go through it, go back out in the field, then realize all the things that you should have paid closer attention to, or you just pick up with experience and then want to take a refresher a year or two or even more down the road.
Yeah, no, we absolutely would welcome that. I know that we had an individual that took the class, let's just say 5-6 years ago. And then a year or two ago, may actually been the class you were in, Eric, came back for a second time. And he told me, he said, when I was in this the first time, I was a couple of months into this industry. He'd made a move from some other industry into the fastener industry. And so he had used Fastener Training Week to help, sort of jumpstart his career in that. And he said that, I learned so much, but I realized I didn't know what I didn't know. And I went back and, later on, I'm like, gosh, now that I have gained a couple more years experience, I would get a lot more value out of the class taking it again. And he did. And like I said, I think there's a good chance that he was actually in the class session for his second round, the one that you took.
Yeah, I think I know who you were speaking about. And I think there might have actually been two in that case because there was an older person too who's a CFS. Yeah, well, it's good to know. So do you know what the policy is, though, of FTI? Is that sort of a comp thing, or do you get a discount?
That I don't know. You'd have to talk to Fastener Training Institute on that. I certainly know that they welcome individuals that would take it again. If they have any special policies for that, I'm not aware of.
Okay, because I know if you don't pass the test the first time, you can take it a second.
That's absolutely right. We want people to pass that test, and so we work with them. We'll work with individuals. Take it as many times as you need it till you pass it.
Okay, so you've mentored so many people, and I wouldn't mind hearing if you have some students over the years that have kept in touch with you and you've helped along even beyond your classwork. But before you talk on that, can you point to anybody who was a great mentor to yourself as you were coming up and really showed you the way on how you were going to lay your own career, how you were going to present?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two people. There's two people that fall in that crowd. So one from, again, my past life. I keep referring to my past life. I spent the first 26 years of my career in this industry working for a fastener manufacturer here in the Chicago area where I live. I started as I spent 2 years as a co-op / intern in college. And then when I came on full time, I started as an application engineer and left that organization as their VP of engineering, probably the number 2 guy in the organization. 13 years ago, I hung my own shingle out, and I've been doing what I've been doing now for the last 13 years. So again, we've got sort of my past life and my new life. And so in the past life, the gentleman that hired me was a gentleman by the name of Porter McLean. And there are certainly individuals, I'm sure, hearing this podcast that know Porter, perhaps know him well. He's, again, very prominently involved with the Industrial Fasteners Institute. So, and many folks probably have rubbed shoulders with Porter. But Porter is an engineer and basically tucked me under his wing, and I learned a tremendous amount from him. He also is a very modest guy, and he will tell you that that I didn't learn anything engineering wise from him, but I guarantee you that I did. But I think more than anything else, I learned from him again in that past life how to be a leader, a business leader, how to work with customers, how to be a better engineer, all those sorts of things. He was a wonderful mentor and remains today to be a very, very good friend of mine. In when I made the transition, though, I had a previous relationship with this individual, but when I went out on my own, one of the first people to reach out to me and say, okay, now that you're a free agent, we'd like you to come get involved with us. And that was Joe Greenslade at the Industrial Fasteners Institute. And again, anybody that ever met or worked or has even heard of Joe's legacy knows that Joe is the poster child for an individual that believed in mentorship, and he mentored multiple people. So it wasn't his mentorship of me wasn't just sort of a one-off deal. He was doing it with all sorts of people. And he actually, when he retired from the IFI, he went and worked with under-resourced individuals in his community, in the high school kids in his community, to help get them to college. So again, mentorship was huge to him, and he truly lived and believed that, and will always be, in my book, perhaps the greatest mentor I ever had, at least on the professional side.
Well, I'm totally not surprised at all to hear you mention Joe Greenslade as one of the key mentors at all. I had a feeling that was coming. I remember I mentioned to Joe early on the history of Fully Threaded, what we were doing and everything. And I just very jokingly asked him what he thought about fastener podcasting as a thing in the fastener industry. And he gave me a very dry response, I remember. He was a good sport about it, though. He came on and gave us a little bit of time. And I wouldn't say that he was completely impressed with it at the time, but nevertheless, great man, and good story there.
Well, when after I'd received notification of the Hall of Fame induction, and I was preparing my a little message to say at acceptance, Joe immediately came to my mind. I was thinking about people who really deserved a Hall of Fame spot, and Joe was the absolute first person that came to mind. And at that point, I had not looked at who previous recipients were. I knew of a number of the previous recipients from recent years, but I didn't know who they were going back. But in my mind, I said, Joe is a superstar. I mean, Joe is the Michael Jordan of fastener world. I mean, just an incredible guy, and the energy that he had and the things that he actually accomplished, just absolutely amazing. So I was super happy to see, actually, when I went back and I looked at the previous Hall of Fame, that Joe was an inductee probably about 20 years ago, and he definitely deserving of that spot, and very humbling for me that I guess I'm placed in that same company.
Yeah, well, you're telling me. Well, as it turns out, the honor is really given for a variety of different reasons, and I think that yours and his are among the noblest for sure. I also wanted to say, before we switch gears here a little bit, that he always reminded me of a guy that if he wasn't in the fastener industry, he could have worked at NASA at mission control.
Yeah.
So on the subject of guiding people into the future in their fastener career, you must be looking down the road in what's coming for our industry. And I have to ask you the mandatory, fully threaded AI question. How do you see AI impacting the fastener industry? It's a huge question unto itself, but just in general, I'm curious about really how you would prep up a young professional getting into all this and what's ahead.
Well, yeah, I think that there are a number of different sort of headwinds that we have facing us here in the industry. and again, good things. I'm gonna rephrase your question a little bit, and I gotta say, what kind of things do I see or am I envisioning that are going to really impact the industry going forward? What are some of the things that are going to be meaningful to us as an industry for the next couple of years? Certainly, one of those is talent. Not only how do we attract new talent, but how do we retain it? Now, that's been a question for some time. So that's not really a new thing, but I think it's continuing to be. That's a point that continues to be a very important one to the industry. It's almost 10 years ago now that baby boomers started to retire, and I believe that's continuing through 2030 something or else. So we're still in the middle of that, but you talk to any organization and just about all of them can share stories that, we have a bubble of individuals. We have a group of individuals that have retired or will be retiring soon. And we need new people to step in and take over from where they have left off. And so again, that's going to continue to be developing new individuals is going to continue to be a real challenge for the industry. That's certainly where I get a lot of satisfaction in knowing that I'm playing a piece in helping that and helping educate some of those individuals that are coming in. But every organization is going to have to wrestle with that question and, figure out exactly how they're going to do it. And quite frankly, I think it's one of the key questions that I'm sure many have been asking, but we'll continue to have to ask and figure out good solutions to for the coming years. So that's certainly one thing that, again, as an industry, we're going to continue to have to address. Some of the things that are changing, perhaps the way that, opportunities and so forth in the industry. Again, I think that electrical vehicle and autonomous vehicle development is going to continue to be something that the industry has to watch. It will change the dynamics, at least the dynamics of certain parts of our industry. The automotive segment of our industry is significantly affected by that. Now, I don't know, with the current political administration, there's less emphasis perhaps on that, but I think that the world is too far in on electrification of vehicles that we're not going to continue to see that technology continue to evolve and improve. And it's just a matter of time before, again, we see sort of a very major shift over what we have today towards more different type of propulsion in vehicles. So that will continue to be something that we, as an industry, changes the face of our industry a little bit. And then I think the one that, again, the most recent one that's really, come onto the stage here in the last year or so is AI. It's ironic. I was participating yesterday in a webinar. I was a participant. I was not, had nothing to do with producing the webinar, but I was a participant in a webinar with basically a part sorting automation company. They were doing a webinar on how AI is influencing and evolving some of the technology that you have in high volume part sorting. And it was a very informative webinar. And not only did I learn about really some of the significant innovation that's gone into just the traditional pieces of part sorting of cameras and ways for cameras to see parts and so forth. But then again, the purpose of this webinar was predominantly to talk about how AI is going to influence things. And they were showing some of the options that they have on their equipment now that utilize AI. And again, it's all about using AI to train the equipment to be able to recognize things that traditional methodologies didn't allow us to detect with, at least with a great amount of certainty. And that AI is bringing is really jumping that high bar up and allowing us to be able to identify and discern problems that we would never been able to discern before. So that's just one example. It's probably a very good example, but we're going to see that. I think we're going to see the same sorts of things, innovation happening in other systems with our forming equipment, the manufacturing equipment that we use. There's certainly opportunities to employ AI to make things, more mistake proof and to help that operator, interface with the machine more successfully. I think we're going to see it in the systems that we have in the office. I'm sure that AI solutions in the accounting area and in the engineering area and stuff that, again, are being worked on and can provide some enhancements to the traditional ways we used to do things.
Are you following any of the developments in AI-assisted inventory management?
I have not. To be honest with you, I guess I don't really fully understand AI. Admittedly. So it's not actually after participating in yesterday's webinar where I see how I think really provides some real improvements. I'm going to have to step my game up and see how it's impacting some of these other areas more strongly.
Sure, as are most of us. And I didn't know because you're really not focused on the inventory side of things anyway, but worth a question. Getting back to what you were talking about with this parts sorting technology that they were highlighting there in that webinar, you were talking about problem detection, maybe in areas where we were never able to see before. What kind of insights do you think that AI is going to be providing, or what kinds of unforeseeable things are you talking about there?
So this particular webinar was focusing on threads, on basically verifying, checking the quality of threads. So it was a very small segment of a broader context of basically sorting fasteners. But two of the areas that I think have been traditionally challenging for automated part sorting are crack detection, which of course is a huge problem for fastener manufacturers. Particularly those that are making screws with recessed heads. It's very common to have a variety of different causes that can cause you to have cracks form in the heads, and detection of those, particularly cracks that are very tight, that aren't like big bursts on the side of the head, very very tightly held cracks. Those have always been very difficult to distinguish. And on threads, having nicks in the threads, having what we call a drunken thread where the helix angle is off. There's a number of different problems that we can have in threads that are very hard to detect. And so what the webinar showed me yesterday was that they're employing AI by being able to basically teach the brain of the unit that when you see things like this is a problem. This is equal to a problem. And so we're training it to be able to recognize anomalies that previously couldn't be recognized. And of course, the goal in automated sorting is to be able to do that as quickly as possible. So again, having being able to teach the computer to be able to recognize things at a very, very high speed, something that's absolutely impossible for us to accomplish on a human basis, again, provides a lot of promise. And I think that in the area of threads and in the area of crack detection, AI is just going to sort of, open the floodgates and provide a real jump in innovation and technology to be able to address those two sort of longstanding challenging areas into making them much easier.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty exciting. I hadn't heard of that. So many areas that AI is moved into that are, well, there's promise out there, put it that way. They call them drunken threads. Who started that?
I have no idea. It's probably a pretty good description, though, because, again, it has to do with the helix angle, a wavering helix angle. So if you look at a part with a drunken thread, it sort of looks cattywampus,
Right. Oh, no, I get the reasoning behind it. I'm just wondering where that started, how widespread that use is.
I think that's a pretty typical term. It's not anything I coined.
I want to ask you about your writing because almost everybody reads Distributors Link magazine, and somehow you got to page 8 Pretty good placement there, Laurence.
Yeah. So, well, I write for, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I write for 6 magazines on a routine basis. Several of those are outside of the United States, but here in North America, I write an article. I think for every journal in Link and for every journal in American Fastener Journal. I write on an occasional basis for Mike over at Fastener Technology International. In my early days, I wrote an article there almost all the time. But in recent years, I generally contribute maybe 1 or 2 a year to that magazine. Yeah, so I do write a lot. I have always enjoyed writing, so I won't necessarily say it's easy. It's becoming harder and harder to come up with things to write about. It's always actually, I actually find it sort of a relief when the editors come and say, "Can you write on this particular topic?" Because then I don't have to come up with anything. But
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to say, where do you get the inspiration for your titles? Because I am completely with you.
Yeah. So again, usually these days, they will come to me and just say, "Can you? Here's our next deadline. Can you give us an article?" And so I'm coming up with my own ideas, and I write. Again, depending on the magazine, I write between a mix of, I guess, what the magazine folks would call sort of editorial, an editorial piece versus a technical piece. I would say that I probably write more technical pieces than editorials, but again, I do a mix of both of those. And yeah, usually I guess the inspiration comes down. I'll sit down and I'll start, does something come to mind? Did I just do a training on something where a particular subject came up? Was there something on a standards committee that we were wrestling with that would be a good thing to talk about? Is there something on the editorial pieces? Is there something going on in the news that, or some kind of headwinds in the industry that would make sense to talk about this particular topic?
All right, so you're just pulling out whatever's handy, whatever catches your ear.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And I was going to say about your articles, what I enjoy about your writing is that you do intermix it with editorial. Have you ever gotten yourself into any hot water with readers? Because I noticed that you do put your own kind of a political outlook in there occasionally, which I like a lot, by the way.
I've occasionally received feedback. I've never received any feedback that just said, you're all wet and don't agree with anything you're saying. I try to, if I'm taking sort of an editorial stance on something, I try not to take a very strong opinion one way or the other. And I try to give fair coverage, although I'm not sure I always do a great job of that. But I try to not come across taking too much of too strong of a position, say on one side over the other. I try to, it's more about, okay, here are the facts, here's what's going on, and try to sort of keep it to that. But I do occasionally get, as far as your question on feedback, again, I've never had anybody, I think, get a hold of me and tell me I'm all wet or whatever. And that may be that those may have happened, and that feedback may have gone to the editors of those magazines and they chose not to pass it on to me. I don't know. But I do occasionally get feedback on technical things. And those are very, I very much appreciate when I get a comment or some feedback on technical issues, because I'm not always right, or I haven't always stated things well. And so getting feedback that shows me that, yeah, okay, you sort of missed the boat here, or you did not state that well enough is very helpful, because it will improve me the next time I'm talking, teaching, writing on that particular subject.
Well, was there ever a case where you found out that you were just completely wrong?
Yes. Yeah, actually, I was doing a webinar recently on torque tension or preload. I forget the title of I forget the title, but it was basically on achieving preload and how we do that. And I had a participant come back after the fact and say, Lawrence, this slide, what you showed on this slide is wrong. It's not what you said, not what you're trying to illustrate. What's on the slide is not illustrating what you said and what you had intended to say. And you know what, I looked at it and he was right. And I had to, I reached right back out to him and thanked him profusely for bringing that to my attention. And we fixed that. And the next time I use that slide somewhere, it will be fixed.
All right. The ever important visual aids.
Yep.
Well, what are you focused on these days? What's exciting in the fastener industry that's got your attention?
As I said in my acceptance speech, I think that, as I look at my career, I've gone through this evolution. The first 15 years of my career, it was all about, okay, how was I going to, what did I need to do to propel my career along? And as my career grew, somewhere in that mix, I started to move into management roles. And I had a boss that, one time, I think it was probably during a annual review or something with me, basically said that as you get into management roles, you have to change your functions. To be a success as a manager, it's about you allowing the folks that work for you to be successful. In other words, if you're a successful manager, it's because you're making your team successful. Right. And that always stuck with me. And now, as again, we tack another, let's say 20 years onto it, or roughly 20 years, another 15 years later. And Carmen called me a really young guy in his introduction at the Hall of Fame. But, I've reflected on that. And I think I probably have about 10 or 15 more years to give the industry. But certainly I am approaching, I don't consider myself to be in that sunset phase yet, but I'm closer to that than I am to the beginning phase. And I think as I think about that, I think about, okay, how am I going to finish well? My focus now needs to be on how can I continue to help reach in and help individuals that are new to this industry. Developing it as a trainer, I have a good good opportunity to be able to do that. So again, I think that again for me as I look out, it's for the last quarter or so of my professional career, I've got to really get around and focus on how can I pass along what I know to the next generation coming up.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something about a new lock bolt assembly or something like that, but you're looking about how do you expand your ability to give more to the industry, which is amazing. Well, let me wrap it up with this, okay? We've talked a lot about mentorship and so forth, and what we didn't talk a lot about was that during the Hall of Fame presentation, again, I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. I don't think many people knew, but it has to do with your generosity in a lot of other areas of life outside of fasteners. So since you're such a great mentor to many fastener professionals and so many young people in general areas of life, what one great piece of advice would you give folks who are just coming up in 2025?
Yeah, I think to fastener individuals, and this was something that, this was sort of a mantra for me all along, and that would be, take advantage of opportunities. If you have an opportunity to become a participant in a big project, a big initiative that your company is doing, take it. Get involved. That doesn't just apply to the fastener industry. I've over the course of my life, I've had a number of opportunities in different settings, and I'll pick the one that I will pick as an example here will be, I've had a couple times where I've had to make a transition to a different church because I've gone from one location to another, whatever, and the value that you get out of the value that I found of getting out of that community has been a direct function of how involved I've been. And so, I got involved with things right away, and that pulled me into that community more quickly. I guess in the fastener industry, a very similar analogy would be like fastener standards. If you're a technical person and you really want to learn something about the industry, and you want to meet some really iconic people in the industry, go join ASTM or ASME or the SAE Fastener Committee. But you don't just join them, you join them and you get involved. There's a lot of, you can go to those meetings, you can sit in the back as an observer, or you can raise your hand when we're looking for volunteers. And I guess my advice here is raise your hand. For those opportunities where you have to be involved in something, raise your hand and get involved. That's how you learn. I mean, a lot of my training is classroom. We're going through sort of a classroom sort of environment. I personally believe that I learned so much more by experience. That's not minimizing classroom, having fundamental background understanding how things work, but I really learned things when I experienced them. And so that would be my advice to young people is take initiative, get involved. And it doesn't have to be, again, if you're an engineer, that involvement doesn't necessarily have to be in just engineering stuff. A lot of my past life, a lot of stuff that allowed me to learn and grow and develop in my career was being involved in projects that weren't specifically or directly, exclusively engineering related. They involved other aspects of marketing and sales and accounting and things like that.
Yeah, sounds obvious, sounds logical, but it's sage advice. And I'd say this, Laurence, it goes the same with the associations as well. A lot of people have an opportunity to meet people, network, learn new things, and do new things in that channel as well. So great advice. And let's stay on the mentorship topic, but shift just a little bit and talk about your focus outside the fastener industry. I've made mention of the fact that I learned about you from the Hall of Fame presentation and all that, and things that I didn't know. And one of them was your deep involvement with the scouting organization. And that means a lot to you. It's taught you a lot in a lot of ways, and you've helped a lot of people out that way too. So would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, certainly. I did not actually bring this out during the Hall of Fame speech, but my history with scouting goes way back. I started as a Cub Scout, graduated into Boy Scouts, and I actually became an Eagle Scout. So that's been one of the highlights of my life is reaching that. And I think that as a kid, when I reached that, it was obviously it was a momentous event. Accomplishment that we did, but it wasn't until later on, as I got a little bit older and really was able to reflect on what scouting did for me. And I would not be the person that I am today without the opportunities that I had in Scouts. Again, I'm assuming that many that are listening to this podcast don't have a lot of firsthand experience with Scouts. And that's certainly fine. One of the hallmarks of scouting is that you develop young people with leadership skills. And in my journey to Eagle Scout, I had the opportunity to become a more confident person and to learn to be a leader and to learn to be a servant leader and, many great things. And so as an adult, and I have 3 boys, I have 5 children, but my 3 boys have all been part of scouting. My oldest actually is an Eagle Scout, and my 2 younger ones are currently in the program. So I became the scoutmaster a couple of years ago of their troop when when the father that was doing that before decided it was time for him to step away. I ended up stepping into his shoes, and it really is something that brings me a great deal of satisfaction being able to work with these kids. And I think that the greatest satisfaction comes from seeing a boy that starts in Scouts at 11 years old, is thoroughly immature, is thoroughly uncertain of life and uncertain of their abilities, and watch them progress till they turn 18 and they age out, whether they make Eagle Scout or they don't, but seeing them progress, seeing them grow and mature, and pick up leadership skills that I know from my own personal experience that they will be able to employ to greater degrees of success later on in life. So yeah, scouting is certainly something that has done a great deal for me, and I will continue to give back to that and for hopefully many years to come.
Well, I think you're right. Sadly, a lot of folks in the audience probably aren't really connected with scouting anymore. It used to be pretty much a mainstay in the country, not so anymore. What age were you when you reached Eagle? And I don't know that many people really appreciate what a truly awesome achievement that is.
Yeah, so scouting goes from 11 years old to 18. I finished my Eagle project. You have to do a big service project when I was 13, and I actually became an Eagle when I was 14 years old.
Wow, that's quite young.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit on the younger side, but anyone that makes Eagle, it's a great accomplishment. So
I've known a couple of guys. Well, actually, I have two close friends who are Eagle Scouts, and they are also engineers. Strange that, huh? But I've also known one or two folks who did age out and they didn't get there in time. So they were trying for it and it just didn't happen for them. It's been a lifelong regret. What was the step right under Eagle?
Life Scout.
Right.
You know, Eric, as I'm sitting here rolling it in my mind, I misspoke. I started working on my Eagle when I was 14. I became Eagle when I was 15.
Oh, you're slacker.
Yeah. So it was 13 is a little bit, as I think about it, is a little bit aggressive. And I'm thinking I did my Eagle Scout when I was freshman in high school. So I would have been 14 going on 15.
And so the project is like the equivalent of a thesis in a PhD program, for example. So do you mind me asking, what was your service project?
Yeah, it is. It's a big deal. Again, the whole idea is that you just don't do a project to help someone. You actually do a project which, again, is meaningful, but you lead it. My particular project was there is a state park nearby where I live. It's called Volobog State Park. And I had made a relationship with the naturalist that ran that park. He there's another state park nearby that had in their visitor center, they had a observation beehive, and he wanted an observation beehive. So the primary part of my Eagle project was to build an observation beehive that went into the visitor center at the Volobog State Park. I actually also designed and built several rest benches for the trails also at Volobog. But the primary piece and the one that, again, is sort of unique and special was building this observation beehive.
Okay, you used a lot of fasteners doing that, I bet.
We used some. And certainly at that time, I had no appreciation for them other than that they were screws or bolts or whatever.
Right. Okay, now, so fast forwarding to today when you're participating as a Scoutmaster, have you ever found an occasion where you've recruited some young guys into the fastener industry? Or has it ever come up as sort of a life lesson?
Well, that's a great question. I've actually I made some inroads and perhaps getting my oldest son into this industry. He served as an intern this last summer, but that wasn't through scouting. No direct. I don't think I've made a direct connection between any of our youth and the fastener industry yet. But to be fair on that, the kids that basically, when I started as Scoutmaster, the kids that were in my first year as Scoutmaster, basically the older kids that are out of Scouts now are just freshmen and sophomores freshmen, sophomore, maybe juniors in high school. So not high school, I'm sorry, in college. So they actually haven't, I don't think any of the kids that I have really had under me as Scoutmaster are yet out in industry.
Well, maybe there's a program there you can put together with the IFI, because I could tell you this, a lot of those guys that I know, they would be an asset to any company that would hire them. I mean, it's a great screening program right there. You know, you make it through that, you can probably do pretty well in a fastener manufacturer.
Yep. Yeah, I have several individuals that the first boys that became Eagle Scouts while I was Scoutmaster. Again, these boys are now sophomores, juniors in college, but they're engineers and in business, so they'd be great assets to our industry.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Great conversation. Laurence Claus, it's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, I want to make one more comment before I roll out of here with you, and that is, you said that Carmen says you're a younger guy, and I can say this from experience too, but have you taken a look at your Link magazine photo lately?
Yeah, it's a little younger looking, right?
Oh, I respect that.
I can tell you a funny story on that. A number of years ago, I was participating in one of my clients is a German company, and they do a conference every year. They basically bring together all their applications engineers, and they do a big conference about what's new and how to. Everybody gets to share some of their success stories, and you learn from one another. And
Sure.
at this particular conference, again, this was done in Germany. It's a German company, but they have people from all over the world that are participating. So at one point, they wanted to have a keynote speaker come in and give a little educational talk. And I don't even remember the subject, but they'd broken it up. So they had a German session with one guy, and then they had an English session with another guy. And yeah, same sort of thing. We got this bio picture of this guy who's going to come in. And again, he was speaking on, I think, something about marketing or customer service or something like that. And this guy looked like 30 years old. And then the guy comes into the room to do the teaching, and he looked to be about 80 years old. And, the dichotomy was just so bad that we're like, he really needs to update his bio picture.
Yeah, well, we're all moving into the world of avatars anyway, so what does it matter, right?
Yeah.
All right. Laurence Claus, thanks so much for being here.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fasteners Clearinghouse.